I took a disposable film camera with me to India, and when I got the film developed, I was convinced that I needed a proper film camera. If you're new here, my name is Hannah and I'm a travel and nature photographer, and if you've been here before, welcome back. Today we are diving into the Contax T2, my film camera that I ended up getting after that disposable camera. Anyways, so let's go back to when I was thinking about a film camera and kind of what led me to the Contax T2. So like I said, I brought a disposable camera with me to India, and I did that because, well, really for a few reasons, but I feel like I live in such a digital world. I mean, I don't feel like I do live in such a digital world, and really wanted something that just like took away all of the options. I put it up to my eye, snapped a photo, and that was the photo I was gonna get. Had no idea what it was gonna look like. Whereas on my digital camera, I can always take a photo. If I don't like it, I can review it really quick and then take another photo and make it better and really perfect it. And in an effort to get away from that mindset, this is why I picked up the disposable camera. So with that in mind, when I got my scans back, I really loved the look and feel that these photos had to them. And of course, I edit my photos, my digital photos, to look a little bit more filmic anyways, but there's something, you just can't replicate what film looks like. You can get that like Portra 800 look, but it's never gonna be Portra 800 out of a film camera. 35mm film is just unmatched in that way. So I wanted something that was similar to that disposable camera in a way. And what I mean by that is I wanted something that was of that point and shoot nature and was also lightweight and easy to pack and bring with me on these adventures, because I'm traveling, I'm hiking, I'm backpacking, I'm doing all of these things, and I need something that's small that I can whip out and then put back in my pack again once I'm done with it, and it won't take up that much space. And the Contax T2 was where I landed in that decision. And this is my Contax T2. She doesn't currently have film in her right now, but that's because I have a film review that I'm working on and just haven't had the time to go actually shoot the film. So there's that. But let's get into some tech specs of this bad boy, bad girl film camera. So the first thing I want to touch on is this lens that it has. So it's 38mm and it has an aperture of 2.8 to 16. So you really get that solid mid-range, and it takes 35mm film. And I have a few film stocks that are my favorite these days, but I mostly shoot on Kodak Gold, Ultramax, and Portra 800. And one of the things I love in particular about this camera, and was one of the reasons I gravitated towards it in the first place, was because it has autofocus, and the autofocus is center fixed. You have the option to change it to manual focus, but the autofocus is just really great for that grab and go, quick, swift photography.
Equals 16.40 feet.
Whoa.
1 meter is equal to roughly 3.28 foot. This is from onlinecalculator.org.
As I said, plug and play, you can just throw it in autofocus, and there's a little circle in the viewfinder, and that is where it will focus. There's also an option to do infinity focus, which means it will focus further in the distance rather than what you have kind of in the foreground or closer to the lens itself. And then there is also a manual focus option. So you can go from 0.7 meters all the way up to 5 meters, which means 5 meters in feet is, as you heard from Siri, is 16-ish, 16.5 feet. So if you choose 5 meters on the manual focus option, it is going to focus on the objects that are 16 or so feet away from the lens. So it really gives you a little bit more creative control when we're talking about focus. And you can actually also run this camera in aperture priority mode. So when you select on the lens the aperture that you'd prefer, it will expose according to that f-stop. I know I said that this is fully auto. You can just turn it on and it will do all the things for you. But one of the other things I really like about it that kind of lets you customize your photos and make them look more how you want them to is the exposure compensation ring that it has. So you are able to tell your camera whether or not you want it to overexpose by half a stop, 1 stop, 1.5 stop, 2 stops. And you can also go in the opposite direction. So you can also underexpose your image just by using this little ring right here. And it also has a flash right here, so when you're shooting in a darker environment and you might be in need of a flash, Contax T2 has got your back. And as someone that was very new to film photography, I mean, I think I took a black and white class in high school and then shot on disposable cameras because that's what we did in the early 2000s. I was really nervous to load film into this. I thought I was going to break the camera. I thought I was going to mess up the film somehow. I don't know. And so the fact that this just auto advances it for you, so when you load it, you pull it past the specific line and you close the back of this right here. There's no film in here, right? Nope. So when you close the back of it, it would automatically load your film so that you know exactly how many exposures you have. So when you put a new roll of film in, it will say 0, 1, which means you have 1 exposure. So then you'll take that and then it will advance automatically for you after you take the photo, which I can't stress enough was so helpful in the process of getting used to film photography and just, I don't know, you don't want to mess up. This stuff is expensive. Film is so expensive. The Contax T2 also has a DX code reader, which means when you load the film, the camera will actually be able to read what speed film that you're putting in and adjust all other settings accordingly. So again, plug and play, baby. It also has a self timer if you're into that. Just moment of appreciation for how beautiful she is. This was purchased off eBay and it was made in 1991. It's a year older than I am. And like, there's no scratches. And also it just feels like good in your hands. You know, when you put something in your hands, like my digital camera, for example, like it just feels like it's at home. Like your hands were made for the camera. This is me in the Contax T2. It just feels good, like ergonomically. And there's nothing more satisfying than this right here. Do you hear that? That is like analog dreams, and also, I don't know, sounds like I'm about to go make magic. And I know I mentioned I gravitated towards this camera because it's just that point and shoot nature. Like I know I can turn it on and it's going to expose the way it's supposed to without me having to do anything to it. But with all these little customizable options, it really was a great entry point for me into film photography, where like I have a little bit of control over things. Over time, I'll get more comfortable with the camera as I have. And so I've grown into it in a way that's allowed me to really perfect my images and create this little recipe of my own. Even though I'm given a film stock, I can make it look more like a Hannah photo. The shutter speed range is also 1/500th to 8 seconds. So you have the ability to do some slow shutter photography and also some pretty fast pace. I wouldn't say I'd go photograph sports with this thing, but you know, for the average stuff like I do, which is hiking, travel, portraits, things like that, she's good for it. And just to bookend this whole thing when we're talking about this camera right here, the size, okay, I don't know how to show this any better. Let's show it on my phone. It is shorter than my phone in terms of length, right? It's a little bit thicker, that's right, whatever, but it's smaller than my phone. This can literally fit in just about, it can fit in my back pocket, you know what I mean? So it's just so great, and it really resembles that disposable camera size, right? So it's still small enough, like that disposable camera I had with me in India was just kind of in the bottom of my bag. Not that I would do that to this. It goes in its little home and then goes in my bag nicely. But it's just the size, it's just easy. And this is what I needed for film photography. And having this camera made me want to go explore things even further. I ended up buying a camcorder, which I'm very excited about. And again, just like living in such a digital world, it's nice to go back to the basics. And that's why I love this thing. And this is why I also bought that camcorder and why I love that camcorder. It just kind of makes you appreciate the moment in a totally different way, especially as a photographer and just as a consumer of places. You just see so much all the time. This analog really forces you to just slow down and appreciate a little bit more deeply and just be more intentional with your photography. And there's just something that is just so perfect about how easy this camera is. Just my digital camera has lots of bells and whistles. And of course, I bought it for that. It is my job to take photos, to make photos. But this just takes away all of that. It's me in the film stock and whatever I do to like very minusculely, is that a word? Minutely, whatever, really small. When you like make small adjustments, that's the word I'm looking for. So it's just me, the film stock, and pressing the shutter essentially. And when you strip away the bells and whistles, it's just freeing in a way, because you can't even look at the pictures that you're making until you get developed, and you win some and you lose some. I've taken some shitty photos on this thing, but I've also taken some really great photos on this. Now that the Contax T2 is a part of my kit, I really can't imagine my film photography without it. And it's made my digital photography better. I've just become more intentional with my photos and really perfecting it in camera rather than just being like, oh, I'll fix it in post, which like I've been guilty of in the past for sure. And when I pull this little square viewfinder up to my eye, it's just like everything else melts away. I feel like I've really buttered the Contax T2 toast. And if you are looking for a Contax T2, have some patience, get on eBay, and Godspeed. The Contax T2, she's worth the investment. So if you have any questions about film photography, Contax T2, anything in that realm, drop it in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Following.